Celebrating our 100th anniversary, the Johnstown branch of the American Association of University Women, AAUW, is proud to present this tribute to our members, who have been part of this organization for 50 or more years. Here is our host, Madeline Geyer.
Hello, my name is Madeline Geyer. I've been a member of AAUW for just 4 years. It is my privilege to introduce a special group of women with a combined 396 years of membership in the Johnstown branch of AAUW. They are here to tell us about their personal experiences and to inspire us to continue their work on behalf of women and girls. The American Association of University Women was established in 1881 to address issues impacting the lives of women and girls. On October 18, 1923, a special meeting of the College Women of Johnstown was held at the Franklin Street Methodist Church. At that meeting, the members voted to have the group become a part of the national organization, and they became the Johnstown branch of the American Association of University Women, known as AAUW. Over the past 100 years, hundreds of local women have continued to address those changing issues. Through wars, economic hard times, floods, and a myriad of social changes, the women of the Johnstown branch of AAUW persisted in advocating and educating the community about their mission. Organizational memory is a valuable commodity. At this time in our branch, we are fortunate enough to have 9 women who each have been AAUW members for 50 or more years. Some of those women were able to share their thoughts and memories of AAUW in Johnstown. Can you tell us about your journey with AAUW and what motivated you to become a member over 50 years ago?
Well, when my husband and I, with 2 children, moved to Johnstown in 1958. We moved to an apartment complex, a lot of good neighbors, a lot of good people to meet, but something was lacking. And one day I was at a book sale review for Anna Catherine Bennett, which many of the older members will remember. And she was doing a book on Travels with Charlie and by Steinbeck. And when she finished, she said to someone, "Are you going to College Club this week?" And I thought, College Club? My word, this sounds very exciting. I have 3 children at home and 1 car, of course, my husband using. So I went to College Club, and that was AAUW. And I became interested in it and met many new people, many new thoughts, many new different backgrounds in their education. And through the years, I became then corresponding secretary, then a book sale chairman, then a convention chairman in Johnstown, and president, and then went on to the state board for 4 years. So that was my introduction to AAUW, and I've enjoyed it ever since.
I'm a teacher, and I went to Johnstown High School as a student. My second year of teaching, I arrived at Johnstown High School. My teachers, that were my teachers, suggested or invited me to a meeting. And of course, they didn't force me, but I thought with a suggestion, I better join the organization. And I've never been unhappy about it. It's been very satisfying to me. But that's how I got my journey into AAUW.
Well, I joined AAUW in 1966 because I was looking for some mental stimulation and hoping to make some friends. Around that time, we had 3 children. Their ages were 3, 18 months, and newborn. And my life was busy with children for quite a while then after that. And one day I saw an article in the paper about a program that AAUW was presenting, and I thought that sounded interesting. I went and enjoyed it, and Helen Ott asked me to join the organization, and I did. And I've always enjoyed being a part of AAUW, and I'm proud of the work that they have done.
I was interested in meeting people at that time. I was in education, but it seemed that all my friends were in education, and I thought I'd like to meet some different people. And so I met an AAUW member who invited me to a meeting, and it sounded interesting. And then I got invited to what we called at that time a study group, and we had to read a book and discuss it, and I was hooked. And that got me into AAUW.
And back in those days, most of us were teachers. I was a school librarian at Johnstown High School. And so my friend, when we first started to teach, we had all gone to Johnstown High School, a lot of us. And so we had some of the older teachers that we had and were there, and they were members of AAUW, so they wanted us to join. And also in those days, I was in my early 30s, and if you were pregnant, you stayed home, and then you had a sabbatical for 2 years. So I had 2 kids, one was 3, and the other was like 1. And my friend said that these teachers want us to join, and would we like to do that? And I said, that'd be wonderful, because then you get to leave, you know, being home all the time, seeing nobody. So that was how I got motivated to join. And then the journey was quite different things. But the main thing was the book club. And at the beginning, the book club was not called the book club. It was called the Literature Study Group. And that, in those days, we had to have topics. You know, everything was a study. And so we picked different books. The one year was to do about law. And so every book that we read that year had to do with the law system. So I still remember that. And that had to be back in the 70s, so it was a while ago.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we came from Ithaca, New York, which is sort of like the ivory tower, and we came to Johnstown, which I consider is real world. And when we came here, it was hard for me to find people who I could have interesting conversations with, until our daughter in elementary school had a friend who was in AAUW. And I grew up in Australia. There was no AAUW there. So I didn't know anything about it. And she got me involved. And here was this group of women who were talking about politics, about all kinds of things. And they were very interesting. And they're also responsible for partly giving me emotional support to go back and do a couple of master's degrees. Because when in Australia, I had a baccalaureate degree, but a postgraduate diploma in librarianship. And I worked as a university librarian. Here, diplomas are for high school. Nobody understood it. And so it wasn't until people in AAUW said, yes, it's possible to commute to Pittsburgh. And I looked at that mountain and I thought, absolutely not. And over time, I decided, okay, we'll give it a try. And so I did a Master's of Library Science, which was a breeze, because I'd already done that. And then it was the early days of computers. So I stayed on and I did a Master's in Information Science. But AAUW was responsible for that. It also meant that for probably about 5 years, I was not a very active member because I was commuting all the time. So I'm really grateful for the women who kept it going. I always managed to do the book sale, and I always managed to do the Christmas. And then as life went on, became more active.
As a long-standing member of the Johnstown branch of AAUW, what are some of the most memorable experiences or challenges that you have encountered along the way?
First, the support that I received from my husband and my children. I have 6 children, and the respect that I received from them in my journey and on the state board, being away from home, cooperation. Now, during the different positions that I took, one being the book sale chairman, we, back in the 60s, used abandoned stores downtown. And so we had using one this year was the LA surplus. And so we had our books all in there. There was no electricity turned on. So I called the electric company and they said, we'll meet you tonight at 6 o'clock. My husband said, I will go down and meet them and get the electricity turned on. He came in the house and had words of advice quickly. Call the exterminator. Well, what? And when the electric sockets to be turned on are in the basement, when they lifted that door to go down to the basement and then turned the light on, all sorts of little bugs were heading for the drain. So that was certainly a memorable experience. But our sale then, I must add, when I gave the report at the board meeting that year, I said, we have profited $980. And with that, someone over my shoulder handed me $20, just like that, which meant we made $1,000 that year for our book sale. And that was in about 1964 and around there. Now, another memorable, in the 60s also, if people remember, consolidation was a big effort in the area, consolidating the hilltop boroughs with the city. And so we had speakers in our homes. And this particular speaker came to a home on Westmont, one of the big, lovely homes near the inclined plane. And he wanted to make his point about becoming consolidated with the city. So to make his point, he put his foot up on a needlepoint chair in that home, in that living room. May I add very quickly that that consolidation did not go through that year. No. So they're the two very vivid memories. There are many memories that I have throughout the years, but they're the two that quickly come to mind.
I don't know if you call them experiences or challenges. It's just been good for me to be part of the organization because I think I grew by being a member, and that's what the organization wants you to do. I had many opportunities. What is it? I never said no when they asked me to do something, and of course I became a secretary for the organization, a treasurer. I was named gift twice because I keep working for the organization. But some of the things that I think back on are, first of all, we always met in homes. The homes of our members were open to us. From the homes, then we went to the Presbyterian Church, and that became our home. And now, of course, we go all over to many different places for our events, so that's been different. When we started out, we had to almost have the cake every time I went to the meeting. I was carrying a cake or preparing the coffee. And that was something that, that you had to do. It became a responsibility. Then I look back at some of the things we did as an organization, and one of the most interesting that I don't find that they're doing now is creating study groups. We used to have speakers that would give us information for women. And if that became so interesting to us that we wanted to go on and learn more about it, we would develop a study group. Every meeting had a speaker. We never had just our business meeting. We had a speaker, a business meeting, a speaker, a business meeting. Some of the good things that came out of the program are the Write, Rewrite program, the backpack program, the STEM program. One time we even went into schools and we read to the students. But we had so many different things that happened throughout the years. And the organization always stressed the education for women and the equity that should be, or the fairness for women in their workplace. I never felt different about that because I was a teacher. And in teaching, you don't find the inequality as much as you do with some other professions. One time we, took pictures of women in different professions and circulated a poster type effect to different schools and that. There's so much to remember about the organization.
My daughter, when she graduated from college, and then she went and got her CPA, and she was going to stay in Johnstown. And I said, well, join AAUW and become a life member. And so she did. So I think that was a plus. But also, she was a newsletter person for about 10 years, so she was active, and she had a state office. So she was busy doing that. And I remember, too, the Christmas luncheons that we all went to and looked forward to at Sunny Hannah Country Club. So that was another thing every year that we did for 50 years. But I think everybody that you associated with in those days, if they had any questions, about education or women, they would say, well, hey. And then also the meetings, every month we would go. And they always had a speaker and different topics. And that was, it's helped me even to get with the other people. And I was also, in the early days, the EFP, which is the Educational Foundation Program, chairman. And we every year picked a name gift award person. So that was one of the things that we spent a lot of time doing. And that was, I remember that was interesting and different.
In the early days, we met in women's homes and also had a lot of interesting political discussions. That was one of the things. But the book sale is the thread that goes through all of the years that I remember, and it's such a wonderful community involvement. And as I also looked at what was the value and strength of AAUW compared to other organizations, and to me, I think it's the educational component and partly the book sale, because it allows people with limited income to participate. A lot of other organizations, it's constant fundraising. It might be for a noble purpose, but empowering women and so on. But if there's a woman out there who doesn't have a lot of money and can't afford to do all of the fundraising, the book sale is a perfect venue for them to becoming involved and do something meaningful and involve the community.
Yes, there were two areas where I was really pleased that we undertook. One was for the community at large, and it was the Humanities Speakers Program from Harrisburg. They provided outstanding speakers for communities in Pennsylvania. I don't remember if we had to pay money for them to come, but it's possible. But we had excellent speakers. We had a very good audience, I thought. The speakers were people who were well known for their work in certain areas. It could have been about a well-known person who contributed through science, through history, through education. I believe the first one we had, the speaker spoke about Franklin Roosevelt and the history that was happening during his period as president. And the speakers all did an excellent job. And the people were very appreciative coming out to those programs. That was one thing. The other was for the children in the schools. I had seen a brochure about something called Freedom Train, and it was the story of Harriet Tubman. It was done by a group of professional actors from New York City. They went all over the eastern coast of the United States doing performances. For that, we did have to pay something, and I don't remember quite what it was. And I don't know that the AAUW had done anything like that before, to spend money to bring in a a group of professional actors to do something like that. But they were willing to try it. And so we invited the students from Johnstown Middle School, Garfield School, and there were students at Westwood, at the Westwood School. And it was performed in their gymnasium. And I think they mesmerized the children. I mean, they were very interested to see what was going on. And they didn't have too many props, and they had some humor with it, and the children liked it. And I was just so happy to see that happen. You know, we're concerned about education, but you asked about problems for the women. And of course, as you get older, it's harder to get out and get to programs. You know, I'm getting up in years, and I see my friends getting up in years. And, you know, you're used to being active and alive and doing things, and all of a sudden that changes. And I think we need more things that keep older women, and older men as far as that goes, older people active and alive. And I think we're trying to do that.
The Johnstown community looks forward to the AAUW annual book sale. Can you tell us about your contribution to this major fundraiser?
Well, I certainly built on what had been done prior to my taking over. I think every chairman has her own different traumas. Right before I took over, the one location was up where Westwood Theater is now, and it was a shoe store which suddenly went into business again, and about a week or so before the sale was ready to begin. And so the chairman that year had to quickly find another spot to do the sale. And that sort of thing happened all along. And I chaired one up in that area. I chaired one in town at an old store that had been closed, and we just opened it for the sale. And then we finally found a home up at the Richland Mall. And naturally that closed on us, and we had to move out again a week before we were notified. And so we ended up out at St. Andrews for that year. And since then we've been in the Galleria. So it's been a moving sale, but it's been a marvelous advantage for the community, I would say, because books are not inexpensive, and our prices are very good, and people come flocking to it. So it's a pleasure to work with the people sorting the books and setting up the sale, but it's also a pleasure to meet the public and spread the word about AAUW a little bit too.
But always the big thing was the book sale, because everybody participated in collecting the books, and then all your friends and all the people that you knew from your church that all knew you belonged to AAUW, and you would collect books so that we'd have money for these scholarships.
And one thing I might add with book sale, one of the things that happened was we received a whole tractor trailer load of books from donations out on the East Coast somewhere. They were sent to the library, and the library could not handle them, and so they gave them to us. And I think it took us 3 years in order to sort all those books and get them out for sale.
Did you portray any of the women mentioned in the book that the branch authored, the women of Cambria County?
Yes. I had nothing to do with writing the book, publishing. There was a lot of effort that went into that. But I did portray Teresa Lyons. She emigrated from Europe after the First World War. Got her degree in pharmacy at the University of Pittsburgh, and then she and her husband had 6 or 7 drugstores, pharmacies in the Johnstown area, in Cambria City, and in the main part of the town. And so she was very early on a woman who was able to pursue her interest in education.
Education has been a core focus for AAUW. What educational experiences or programs are you most proud to have provided our community?
I was president about the year 2000, and I went to the state convention that year, and they were trying to help organizations present interesting programs for their members. One of the programs we brought back was not a program, but it was something we did in the community called the Write, Read, Write program. And we're still doing that today. We go into, I think, 2 schools, and our members eventually will buy books for the student. But the student, first of all, writes a letter to our member telling something about himself, herself, and her interests and what she would like to do, pursue in life. And then the AAUW member went out and purchased a book they thought that student would enjoy reading. And after the books were delivered, and the students sent thank you notes to our members, which was very nice. And we're still doing that today. And I think it's one way to encourage young people to read. The other program that I remember that they encouraged us to try was called the Girl Power Program. And this was to encourage young girls to think about getting an education. The state organization provided an outline for how to approach this event, but didn't fill in too many spaces. And so we had someone in our organization who was a godsend at that point, and that was Gloria Reed, who developed that program. We went out into, I think, 3 schools. One was the Johnstown Garfield School. One was the Crescent School, I believe that's in northern Cambria County, and then the Woodvale School. What we were trying to do was to help young girls gain some confidence about themselves and things that they could do to be more relaxed in the community and ask questions and become interested in things and what was available to them. We also tried to point out the value of getting an education. And I think they realized after we talked with them and they did some research, they realized how important it was to get an education because you have a better income if you have an education and can look for a better job. We tried to encourage them to think about different kinds of jobs from what women were getting at that time, which was probably a nurse, a secretary, and a teacher. But we had made a scrapbook into one of the plastic sleeves. Anyway, what we did was we suggested names of women who were doing unusual jobs in our community. And some of the girls were very surprised to see what women were doing. There was a picture of a young woman with a minister's gown on, and she said, "Oh my goodness, you mean a woman can become a minister?" The young woman was assistant to the bishop in the Lutheran church. And so that was something that she had never seen.
When I think about education, I think we have been good to the community. I think just with the book club, we have encouraged people and children to read. And that goes way, way, way back. I can remember we were on Main Street in a shoe store. That was one of our places that we had. Then we went to the Richmond Mall, and now we are at the Galleria. But so many people come back and say thank you for providing this for us. I work with the Rotary Club with the scholarship program. That was one of my interests there. And I also helped develop scholarships for the college students that we have now. And I think we've been a very important part in stressing to young ladies and to women, go and get an education. My father, throughout my lifetime, he was an insurance man, and he always said, your education is your insurance policy, and I believe that.
Well, I think there again it's the book sale, and the idea was that we were raising money for scholarships for women and to encourage them to go on from high school to go on to college. So that was the main thing. It was always education, and we were trying to raise money so we could give scholarships for women to get educated.
I understand AAUW was involved in the recovery from the 1977 Johnstown flood. Can you describe any specific involvement that you and the organization had during that time?
Well, we volunteered to help the Red Cross, and ended up, many of our members went out to counsel people who needed help in rebuilding their whole lives, actually, because they were without homes, without property, without belongings. And there were so many of our members had one-on-one relationships with different people. I worked personally with the group. Well, I went up to the University of Pittsburgh campus because the folks from the towers in town were evacuated up there and cared for in some of the dormitories. And I helped find people to serve their food and that sort of thing. So that we were involved very much so with flood cleanup and help. I mean, it was certainly an eye-opener to many of us who got the opportunity to go in town and see what really had happened in there, and where other folks only heard about it or saw it on limited television. So it was a real eye-opener. So it affected us in many different ways.
I remember that we made a resource list of experts that would help people in the community, because you have to remember, this is well before the internet became ubiquitous, and you couldn't Google anything back then. So it just seemed very important that we provide people with means of accessing important resources that they might need to help them get through things. So that was one memory that I remember. So much was happening at that time, but it was a small thing that perhaps helped some people.
Have you found that you established any lifetime friendships as a result of your involvement in AAUW?
Yes, I certainly have. I know when I was working on the state level, and specifically when we had the convention here in Johnstown in the 1960s, the state president, the state conference coordinator, and we became good friends there, but also through my membership in AAUW. Yes, yes, I have established quite a few lifelong friends, yes.
Many of them, I said, in fact, I was just at lunch with one of the members, and the only way I met her was through AAUW. And probably, I would say, one of the members that joined with me, we have been friends all these years, and that's 50 plus. And so many, some I play cards with now, and again, I only met them through AAUW. So this has been contributing to my life as well as I hope I contributed to AAUW.
Oh my goodness, yes. I would say that these members who are speaking as life members, I know most of them very well. A few members that are no longer with us have been close friends. That over the time period when we were doing the book on women of Cambria County, I worked with several people there, and that was very conducive to making friendships. So I would say that I know an awful lot of people I would have never known otherwise if I had not joined AAUW. And I had so many opportunities in other areas. I mean, I worked with the Flood Museum through an appointment from AAUW, and I worked with Lee Hospital through an appointment from AAUW, and there was an arts council I worked with, and also with a group that got television cable opened up to the general public. So it was a good way to meet people and make friends and get into new areas.
Well, I don't know whether just because I was involved, but I would say with the people that I still know today, you know, it's through AAUW. I met a lot of people I would have never known if we wouldn't have joined. My friend who was also a teacher, Mary Ann, and we're both 50-year members, you know, we always would go together and do things. So, and they're, you know, like Lee and all the people, you really got to, and in this book club, we always met at people's homes. So we got to visit different people in their homes, and it was very nice.
Oh, yes. I think that's been one. I think the book sale has allowed so much involvement within the membership that it's been one of the highlights from my involvement over the years. You know, I managed to try and do the book sale no matter what. So always lots of good friends, yes.
I've always been glad I became a member.
Dr. Florence Warfel was not available to be interviewed but graciously shared some memories with us. I've enjoyed my membership in AAUW for over 50 years. When I first joined in 1967, I was impressed with the scholarly topics discussed in meetings and the emphasis on scholarships for women to further their education. It was difficult for women to get advanced degrees 50+ years ago. In college there was a required subject for which only one section was available, and when the professor saw me, the lone female student, he said, "I don't teach girls." I had to go to the registrar's office and obtain documentation that I was required to take his class. After graduation, during one job interview, the manager told me that no matter how good my grades were, a man would get the job because mathematics is a man's field. This was the 1960s. Thankfully, things have changed. I felt it was important for me to encourage other girls to pursue careers in math and science. A couple of those former students who took up such careers are currently AAUW members. Today, I am still impressed with AAUW's efforts to advance women's education, including the work with the STEM project. The number of scholarships granted over the years to advance women's higher education is still impressive to me. Adele Picking could not be with us today. She also has been a member of the Johnstown branch of AAUW for over 50 years, and is not to be forgotten. Adele worked as a very popular real estate agent in the Johnstown area, and was inducted into the Johnstown Business Hall of Fame. She was known in the workplace for her integrity, open communications, common sense, and hard work for her customers. She carried these virtues into her work with the Johnstown AAUW. Throughout her involvement in AAUW, Adele participated in many endeavors. Among them was her membership in the Beleaguered Earth Study Group. The group produced a multimedia program on pollution and presented it in several local schools. Adele was a member of the founding group of the Reading Enrichment Program in 1965, a tutorial program for students at the Hudson Street Elementary School in Old Conemaugh Borough. And Adele, like all of our ladies, was always active in the AAUW book sales. We miss her presence here today, but are happy to share these memories. Sarah Soup S. Ashman, at 110, is the oldest living member of the Johnstown branch of AAUW. She currently resides with her daughter in Idaho. Although she was not available to be interviewed, her daughter compiled her thoughts and memories about the journeys of the women in her family through 3 generations. Sarah Ashman's mother, Marion Dibert Soup S., was one of the founding members of the AAUW in Johnstown in 1923. Her father, in the late 1800s, allowed each of his 3 daughters to have 2 years of education after high school. Marion chose Goucher College. Although she didn't complete her degree, at that time she was permitted to join AAUW. Believing in the value of education, she and her husband did not restrict their 3 daughters. Sarah Soup S. Ashman graduated as valedictorian from Cochrane Junior High School and Harcum School for Girls in Bryn Mawr. She had a passion for mathematics, but, because of the Depression, her father would not allow her to study math, as that might deprive some man of a job. Instead, she majored in art history, and graduated cum laude from Bryn Mawr College in 1934. She never entered the workforce, but did extensive volunteer work while raising 3 children. Her son credits Sarah, and his father, for imparting a sense of hard work, compassion for others, and conscientiousness. Sarah's volunteer work included helping to recruit interns from around the country to work at Conemaugh Valley Memorial Hospital. Many of them returned to Johnstown and opened practices. At 110, Sarah Ashman continues to be a lifelong learner. She reads the New York Times Digest on an iPad and does the math puzzle on a daily basis. Sarah encouraged her daughter, Sarah Ashman Sifries, to become whatever she wanted. Although she was discouraged by others, she pursued her interest and entered medical school as one of 4 women. Today, most medical school classes are roughly 50% women. Sarah and her daughter feel that our world continues to underutilize, subordinate, and oppress women. They send best wishes to us in Johnstown for a great anniversary celebration and hope that AAUW and similar organizations will continue to advocate for women and, as our Sarah Ashman counseled her daughter, to do and be whatever they want.
As someone who has witnessed the progress made by AAUW over several decades, what advice would you give to young women who are passionate about advocating for women's rights today?
Well, I would have to say many women have a college degree, and they have it in a specific subject, in a specific talent, and they are working in that talent, with that talent. However, by becoming exposed to women of different educational backgrounds, they can learn and expand still their education. As in AAUW, we have several different study groups and interest groups that they can expand their knowledge, not only in their own field, but in what other fields of endeavor there are in the community to use their education.
I would say keep advocating. And I'm so proud of our organization. After COVID, I saw many of my organizations disappear. And I'm so intrigued that our members keep this program growing and keep working for advocacy of women and, you know, the barriers that they have to overcome in their professions.
Well, there's so many ways they can get involved, but somebody very wise said to me, get them to vote. Get them involved in the political process and vote. Vote the issues that are important to women. And so I think that's one of the major factors that AAUW has been successful over the years, all the years it's been involved, not just the 50 years I've been involved with it. So I have enjoyed it thoroughly.
I would certainly encourage women, young women, to be aware of what's happening in the women's rights movement. And there's so many aspects to it. I think they need to be aware of all the aspects of the women's movement and look carefully at where they can fit into it. They want to be somewhere where they are comfortable working and doing things that agree with their own philosophy of what women should or should be doing.
Well, join us because we're interested in women's rights. I can remember when the Title IX was first passed, I was a member and we were not really realizing what effect that was going to have on us, but we were happy to see it. And I think that the more you work toward it, the more you put your effort into the causes that really matter to women, the better off you'll be, and of course better off AAUW will be too.
AAUW has been a catalyst for change and has been empowering women for over a century. Today, there are over 100,000 members organized in over 1,300 branches in 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Guam. In Pennsylvania, there are approximately 60 branches with about 5,000 members. The Johnstown branch of AAUW began in 1923, and we have recorded that 69 women paid the $2 fee for national dues at that time. Currently, we number 64 active members. Profits from our first book sale in 1937 were $17.08. In 1954, we made $350.50. In this, our centennial year of 2023, we netted over $10,000 to fund scholarships for young women. The scholarship program in the early 1920s was in the form of a student loan. In 1973, AAUW of Johnstown established a $10,000 endowment for scholarships to the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. From about 1987 until the present, the AAUW has awarded close to 140 individual scholarships to area young women. In 2007, the Johnstown branch of AAUW contributed $10,000 to Penn Highlands Community College Foundation as an endowed scholarship. We continue to work towards our mission to advance gender equity for all women and girls through research, advancing educational opportunities, and legislative advocacy. We are grateful to have had this opportunity to hear from these strong, independent women who each have been in the Johnstown branch of AAUW for at least 50 years, and they have played an important role in the branch's achievements. After listening to these impressive women, you may feel that it is an organization that would interest you. To learn more about the Johnstown branch of AAUW, take a look at our website, and if you're interested in joining, contact our Vice President of Membership. The AAUW legacy and the work that began in Johnstown 100 years ago continues. Thank you.